No one took superhero movies seriously until the early 2000s, when films like X-Men and Spider-Man proved they could be more than guys in spandex spouting corny dialogue. The early superhero renaissance reached its peak with The Dark Knight in 2008, a movie which proved that not only could superhero movies be taken seriously, they might be able to say something important too. And then, like it always does, Hollywood took things too far and started taking superheroes too seriously. The result was a 2009 movie based on one of the all-time greatest comics. It's a movie about what happens to an alternate world after a high-profile assassination unlocks a conspiracy, premise that may seem ideally relevant to anyone paying attention to 2025 current events. But it wasn't relevant in 2009, and the mega-budgeted movie flopped at the box office after making fans everywhere angry. Could now be the right time to resurrect it and give it another chance. I'm Josh Tyler for Giant Freakin' Robot. Stick around to find out how it all fits together, as we explore why Watchmen failed. When Warner Brothers greenlit Zack Snyder's Watchmen in the mid-2000s, they thought they were delivering a game-changing landmark. Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons' 1986 work is still considered one of the greatest comics ever written. Naturally, Hollywood thought, perfect, let's make it a blockbuster. But there's a reason iconic director Terry Gilliam famously walked away from Watchmen in the 90s, calling it unfilmable. The story spans multiple time periods, switches perspectives, and intercuts comic within a comic segments. Compressing Watchmen into a single 2.5-hour film was probably always impossible without gutting it. Director Zack Snyder tried anyway. He left in nearly everything except the Black Freighter segments in the comic and crammed it into one movie, The Murder of Edward Blake. Better known as the Comedian, sets the Watchmen story in motion. When the paranoid superhero Rorschach investigates the comedian's death, he uncovers a broader conspiracy targeting costumed heroes. What he finds prompts scouted former heroes to reunite and reevaluate their past choices, along with the conspiracy behind comedian's death. His murder is the catalyst for everything that follows, symbolizing the death of moral ambiguity and the beginning of a dark reckoning with power, justice, and sacrifice. Every frame is lifted shot for shot from Dave Gibbons' artwork in the Watchmen comics. Lines of dialogue are ripped wholesale from the panels.
None of you seem to understand. I'm not locked in here with you.
That's it! You're locked in here with me!
Watchmen is stunningly beautiful. The score is haunting and incredible. The performances are award-worthy. Characters leap off the screen. But it's also an experience that was overstuffed and underexplained. It's stuck in a cartoonish version of the 80s, literally. While the movie's main characters are complex and compelling, the 1985 world around them runs on a childish version of good and evil, in which government officials twirl mustaches on the way to nuclear war. Newcomers walked out confused, and too many fans walked out angry. Zack Snyder is a stylist, not a storyteller, and he nailed the style of Watchmen. Dawn of the Dead showed he could stage action. 300 proved he could create a moving comic panel.
This is Sparta!
But Watchmen needed subtlety. It needed irony. Snyder doesn't do either. Some of it comes through anyway.
I know what John would say. Nothing ends. Nothing ever ends.
Transferred by simple replication of the comic. But not all of it. He shot the sex scene in Archie like a softcore music video. He turned the prison fight into a slow-motion ballet. Alan Moore designed Watchmen to deconstruct power fantasies. Snyder embraced those fantasies. Instead of seeing a deconstruction of superheroes, critics saw a joyless, overlong, ultra-violent superhero movie. It holds a fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes, but just barely. Watchmen was immediately divisive. Timing killed Watchmen almost as much as execution. It came out in March of 2009. Just 1 year earlier, The Dark Knight had redefined superhero movies, proving they could be morally complex and critically respected. Watchmen tried to do more of that, and do it harder, but by then audiences were ready for something lighter. In response, Marvel was starting to assemble its cinematic universe, leaning into accessibility and fun.
This is a flight stabilizer.
It's completely harmless.
Watchmen sat in between and appealed to neither crowd. It was at the same time too grim and too shallow. Snyder changed little in adapting The Watchmen into a feature film, but the one big change he did make was a huge mistake. In the original, Ozymandias stages a fake alien squid attack to unite the world against a common enemy. In the film, Snyder reframes it as Dr. Manhattan's energy signature causing global devastation. Fans hated it. To them, it gutted the weirdness and the satire of the squid. To outsiders, the Manhattan framing was incomprehensible. To be fair, the giant squid attack probably would have been incomprehensible to those outsiders too. Still, instead of ending with a shocking, absurd twist, it ended with a muddled special effects sequence that felt like every other superhero climax. Watchmen is a story built around that twist. It's why Alan Moore wrote the thing. When you build your entire story on one big twist, and then botch that twist, you kill your film. Watchmen died in that final act. But people had to see it to know the ending was a problem, and getting an audience to see it proved difficult. Watchmen's trailers were beautiful. Set to the sound of a haunting Smashing Pumpkins song, the ads promised something more than an action movie. And that was never going to work on average moviegoers, most of whom were only interested in superhero action. The Dark Knight had been profound, but WB slipped that in. They didn't sell it on anything other than the movie's cool special effects sequences. The Watchmen trailers tried to deliver both at the same time. Incredible effect sequences, and intense deconstruction navel-gazing. It was too much for the average idiot. Opening weekend for Watchmen was big with $55 million, but the drop-off was catastrophic. By week 2, audiences had abandoned it. The final worldwide gross of $185 million barely covered production, let alone marketing. In Hollywood math, that's a loss. In 2019, HBO proved Watchmen can work on screen when given space, subtlety, and totally new ideas unconnected to the original comic. It just did it while ignoring the source material entirely. But that source material, and maybe by extension Zack Snyder's movie, are suddenly more relevant than ever in a world on the brink of who knows what. Maybe it's time to reevaluate Watchmen. Zack Snyder's Watchmen failed as a blockbuster, but Alan Moore's original story was always more than a comic book. It was a brutal, cynical dissection of power, how societies fracture, how leaders lie, and how the killing of a single man can ripple through history. In Moore's story, Blake's death exposes a web of corruption that triggers the unraveling of everything. The most chilling prediction Watchmen makes is that assassinations rarely stop at shock. But none of that erases the 2009 film's epic failure. At the time, it was supposed to be the definitive comic book adaptation. Instead, it became a box office disappointment, a point of contention among fans, and a textbook example of why not every great story should be translated literally to film. The irony is that Watchmen was supposed to deconstruct superhero movies. Instead, it got deconstructed by them. Should people watch The Watchmen to find out where the world is headed, or should they just read the comic? Cast your vote in the comments. And if you want more videos like this one, consider becoming a member and supporting this channel. It's the only way we can keep making content by humans for humans. I've been Josh Tyler for Giant Freakin' Robot, the channel that never compromises, not even in the face of Armageddon.